Hi, this is David, the Timeless Runner, coming to you with another session of yoga that can be done anytime, anywhere, any place. It's yoga for seniors, yoga for beginners, yoga for runners. Hey, it's yoga for you. Today we're going to focus on the hips in particular, and I'm going to do some exercises that are starting out on the floor. Initially, when I started doing yoga, I was really afraid of getting down on the floor because I didn't think I'd ever get back up. But I've learned to get down on the floor and do some things through the progression of my experience with yoga. I've become more flexible, more able to do some things. This is a typical pose that you will see in yoga. It's a cross-legged pose. I could, at one point in my life, put my knees much closer to the floor. And I'll share a tip with you. If you have yoga blocks, if you put a yoga block under your butt, sit on that, it's going to give you some more flexibility. See how much further down my knees will go towards the ground and how much more of a stretch I will get. So we begin with a relaxing pose. We want to sit up straight. So there's a string at the top of our head pulling it up. And we're going to start by breathing in through our nose. And then out through our mouth. Always try and make your exhale twice as long as your inhale. You can work on that posture. Now, warm-up exercises are a little different when you start on the floor. You can start by putting one hand behind your back for balance and then stretching the one side. Try and keep that posture erect. And then you can switch to the other side. And what the purpose of this is to just loosen up the muscles that we'll be using as we go through this yoga flow. Today I'm going to focus on the hips, which are a big issue for me, and a big issue for most runners, and for people who get older. Probably known somebody in your life who's had a hip replacement, either from arthritis or from falling. Balance is a big thing as we age. Most of the injuries that are sustained by older people are from injuries sustained in falls. So we want to keep everything operating as best we can for as long as we can in our lives. I'm going to stick the feet straight out in front and bend forward, stretching on the hamstrings. They're in the back of the legs. And we can extend our legs out to the side. Again, we're going to be working on the ligaments and tendons and muscles that stabilize our hips. So this is a good way to stretch the ones on the outside. Stretch the groin muscles and go into a figure four, where we bend the one leg, put it against the inside of our thigh, bend forward, and we'll get stretch in the outside of this hip, as well as in the hamstring on the forward leg. Go down as far as you can. You will notice over time that there is a progression. You'll be able to go further and further. If you tilt your toes back on the forward leg, you'll get a different kind of stretch on that hamstring. And then you can put a leg, cross your leg over your knee, wrap your opposite arm around it, pull it to the side as you twist around. Again, we'll be stretching the area on the outside of the hip. What we do in yoga on one side, we always do to the other. So, and we'll start that figure 4. You will notice that on this leg, I cannot go anywhere near as close to the ground as I can on the other with the knee. That's something I've been aware of for the last 40 years or so, maybe 50 years, probably 40. Don't worry about that. Everybody has that side-to-side difference, either in leg length differentials or the amount of flexibility. For me, I have issues on the left side of my body and my hip with sciatica. The reason for that is that I don't have the flexibility on the right side, and that is what is causing the left side to do more work than it should. And when the left side works harder than it should, the muscles get sore, they get tired, and they get tight. So again, we're going to lean into it. We'll feel the stretch on the outside of the hip. These are stretches that I do every day because, as I mentioned, I do have sciatica and I have piriformis and other things that I've accumulated over the years. I'm going to turn around and show you a very effective stretch for hips. You start with a foot up against the wall. It'll take the pressure off of your back. Cross your leg with your ankle on the knee that's against the wall. And then we're going to gently push on our knee, gently, to again stretch out the area on the outside of the hip and that hip joint, all of the attaching ligaments and tendons. We want to hold these for about 20 seconds. That's about the max for any of the stretches that you do. That's where you get the maximum benefit. After that, they just get a little tired. And then we're going to put our hands underneath our knee or in the back of our thigh, whichever is more convenient. We'll lift that up. And again, we'll feel the stretch in different places. And you can rock back and forth as you do this to change the stretch on the outside of that thigh. Do it again with the other side. Oops. If you have a wall that works a little better than a door that slides, that's okay. As you'll see, again, there's a very big difference in the amount of travel on this side of my body. I can't get this down anywhere near close to perpendicular to my body line. Just press and hold it, and eventually all the things on this side will start to release. You'll actually feel them stretch out as you do this. If I was doing these on my own, I would probably do 3 sets on each side. And then again, you can put your hands behind your knee, or you can put them in front of your knee, whichever is easier for you. Pick it up. You can rock side to side again for emphasis on the different muscles as you go through that stretch. Since we're working on hips, I want to show you a couple of strengthening exercises, and one in particular that I find effective. And again, we're up against the wall here. Pardon me, I'm going to move a ball. Put your back against the wall and then start doing what's called clamshells, where you start to lift the knee. Hold it up there to strengthen the outside. Be working the muscles on the outside of your hip as you use just the weight of your body against it. Try and keep your back and your feet against the wall. Keeps you honest. So that you're not twisting with your torso or doing anything inappropriate with ankles or something. So you want to isolate the muscle as you do this. It will be very boring for you to watch me do 100 of these on each side, so today, just for purposes of demonstration, I'll do about 20 to 25. And again, what we're trying to do is just isolate the tendons and ligaments on the outside of our hips that do that crucial job of stabilizing our hips. Keeping everything upright and working. So you always, again, you do on one side, you do on the other. Don't be afraid to hold it. Hold it for a count of 10. That's going to go from a dynamic stretch, which is what this is, or a dynamic muscle building exercise, to a static one. A static one is where you're not moving, but you're still maintaining the stretch as you do it. So again, on a normal day, I would probably do about 100 of these on each side. It takes a while to work up to it. Much of that working up to it is just getting over the boredom of doing it. But it's a very effective exercise to strengthen the outside muscles that control your your hips, and that do impact your flexibility. And then after you do whatever your fixed amount is, we'll start to go to some other hip exercises. Sit straight up, put your toes out, and rotate your knees side to side like windshield wipers on old cars. You can just go side to side. One of the things you may find is you start to slide forward on your butt. Just don't be afraid to recorrect it. You want to be sitting up about as straight as possible. When you do get to the side, you can lean over it, again, to stretch out the glute. It's kind of a modified pigeon pose. Pigeon pose is one of those that I'm afraid I'm going to blow out a knee if I do it because of the lack of flexibility on my right side. But you can do pigeon poses if you wish. And from here, so I typically lay down. They call it a yoga flow because one pose generally leads to another. You can do them in any combination you like. But this is called half a happy baby. Why? Because if you ever see a happy baby, they will be laying on their back and they'll be holding their toes like that. That's called a full happy baby or a happy baby. I can't do that for too long because of some scoliosis in the spine. From the happy baby, I will start to do what's called nerve flossing, which is where I extend my leg upward, push the heel towards the ceiling, then bend the toes and point them downward. And what this does is it moves the sciatic nerve in its canal for the length of travel, normal length of travel. So we do this one just because I have issues with sciatica. Another tool that you may have is a stretching band, resistance band. When you're done doing your nerve flossing, I will usually do 10 of those. You can pull it to the side, put it around your foot, pull it to the side. Again, you'll feel the stretching here as you do that. Try and keep your shoulders flat on the mat as you do this. And as you come back, it's also a great way to do a hamstring stretch. Stretch the back of the leg as you pull your leg forward. You feel the stretch in your hamstring. Again, you can do these in any order you wish. I usually start with the nerve flossing. Again, heel being pressed up towards the ceiling, toes pointed down as you lower your calf or lower leg. Typically, I will do 10 of these. As you do it, if you do want to increase the hamstring stretch, you can pull back on your knee. I just try and do it so that everything's comfortable. And heel up, toe down. And then after about 10 of them, I'll put the resistance band around, pull the leg back for some stretch on the hamstring, rotate it to the side. Let the leg come down, feel the stretch on the outside of the thigh. Again, we're looking for about 15 to 20 seconds to maximize the stretch. If you do push your heel way out or curl your toes up, again, you'll change the focus of the stretch. And that's a good thing. We want to stretch as much as we can. We can then pull our knees up to our chest and hold them there. Point your toes out. For some rotation, you can just do what my grandkids call stirring the witch's pot, witch's cauldron. Just make big circles with your hips, using your hands on your knees to stir the pot. And reverse the direction. I will typically do 5 or 7 of these in each direction. You put your feet straight up in the air, and then just like gravity, bring them down. And we're going to be stretching the outside of the hips and our groin as we do this one. Bring them back up. Try and use the muscles to raise them, not your hands. And let them come down with gravity. Feel the stretch as they go closer and closer to the ground. Use the muscles to raise them back up. You can fold them in. Stretch out the groin. So we do that. Now there are 2 other ones we'll do today before we call it a day. I have a couple of mats here that I use for different reasons. This one's got much more padding in it. So one of the exercises is very similar to a clamshell. It's called a fire hydrant. So it's like, think of the dogs on a fire hydrant. They're just raising their legs up, at least the guide dogs. Doesn't mean a gal dog can't do it, but the guide dog typically does. And it is similar to, as I say, the clamshells that we did earlier. It's used to strengthen the muscles on the outside of the thigh. Try and keep your weight over your knee, not bending to the side as you do it. And we're trying to isolate muscles on the outside of the hip. And the other one, similar to what we just did on our back, we're going to do some big circular motions to engage all of those muscles and tendons around the hip area, to use them, strengthen them, straighten them, make them feel looser and better. And again, opposite direction as we do that. So if you're like me and you have a lot of hip issues, then this is a routine that you can do. You don't need to do it every day, but do it as you see fit. as you think you need it. I generally do different routines every day that isolate different things, but I do have issues with hips, so these are some that I do quite frequently. And again, my name is David, the Timeless Runner. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please click on like. If you want to see these when they first come out, I generally do 1 or 2 narrated videos a week and a YouTube short every day. Click on the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate that. Here's to wishing you years and years and years of health and happiness. Take care. We'll see you again.